Hey, hi, welcome to the working group Note Lifecycle. Today is October 13th, and we have two topics on the agenda. So I will start first with my topic, because it concerns the eviction request cap, and we have the cap freeze is on Thursday/Friday this week. So there is not much time to actually push this forward. So we have like a couple of conversation points, and like I think like basically the main like issue is like that this is like a very big new API, and it comes with a lot of scrutiny and like to see like if we are doing things right. So yeah, so we have like some discussions in the CAP. I will quickly go through the API, and then we can talk about some of the points that might like need some like betterment. And like there is also like we have some items in our agenda that where we discussed the vision request the last time, so we can go through it and see like if it is still relevant or not. Okay, so yeah, just to quickly reiterate, the changes, like the API changes for the pod are that we are introducing a new field called interceptors or eviction interceptors that would basically allow like any entity or controller to set an interceptor on the pod to basically get a notification during like the pod termination or like before the pod terminates. So this is like a way for like components to hook into the life cycle of the pod, and this is like added to the eviction request on admission. So in the eviction request spec, we also have the interceptors, and we also have the requesters, which is a field to actually track components that would like to request the eviction of this pod. And if if this field becomes, or this list becomes like length of 0, then we can pronounce the eviction request cancelled, and it like we might cancel the eviction of the pod. So one of the new fields is a target field. So this is one of the discussion points. And it basically means like today, the only valid option is like a pod reference there. And it might be possible to extend this API to, like in the future, to allow like eviction of other types. But we do not have like a use case for this or a user story, or so this is yeah. So I had like a small discussion with Tim Hawking, and these are the main points that we are changing the API to allow us this extension in the future. So it basically means that we introduce the target field instead of the pod field. And we have some like a failed eviction, API eviction counter field, which is under like a special struct. So these are like the main like differences if we wanted to make this only pod specific. So like like it's still not clear like if we should make it pod specific. But yeah, so I don't know, like, does anyone have a like a use case or like an idea, like if there could be like some other entity needing this like eviction request mechanism?
You're saying specifically for the failed eviction counter, or
No, I mean like for the whole eviction request object. So we are adding the target field, So I mean the interceptors are like very generic. So you just are going through each interceptor, and then you are like testing like if it succeeded or if it is still progressing. And one, so these are like some gates that we have to go through, like and I like what I mean is that like this is not like there is nothing spot specific like for the interceptors to work. So
Gotcha.
like there could be some other like type that like I suggested like PVCs, but I don't know like if PVCs would be like a good candidate for this feature.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, yeah, like who knows what might come in the future, but it's probably best not to speculate about. I mean, I like the idea of leaving it open so that we could, in the future, it could be other things. Right now, pods make the most sense, though, right?
Yeah. So that was basically like what I suggested here, that like we did not design the API to be generic, but it just happened that way. So that's why I was suggesting to like add these like two small changes to the API that it could be reused. So it's not like we are designing for the reusability.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess like the risk of making it too open is that yeah, later it becomes overly flexible and then it's very difficult to express what we want. But on the other hand, if we close it down to just pods, then we'd have to design something in the future if we needed it. Um, I don't know. It's a good question. I like to me it doesn't strike me as a bad pattern, but you know, obviously the trouble would come in the future when we tried to overuse it for different types of things or something.
Mm.
Like I think that's what Tim is kind of getting to. The pods and PVCs are kind of different. Right?
Yes, yes. I mean, the only change that would be easier, like that would come with like having it only pod specific, that it would be easier for the clients to use, is that they would not have to check for the target. So now, like if in like when eviction request is created, each interceptor will have to check if it has the correct, if it sees the correct target, which is now only pods. But I mean, even because there will be like a large number of eviction requests, each like interceptor like will have to select these eviction requests anyway. So and usually that's done through like some labels or the pod reference. So like to me it's not a big deal, because like you still need to make sure that this is the eviction request you want to respond to.
Right. You would have to double check, right? I mean, why, otherwise, yeah, anything could.
Yeah, like it's better to check it is a bot, but yeah, for sure. So like yeah, there is more room for like the clients to make mistakes. Yeah, that's the main downside, I would say. Yeah, and so like yeah, so from the like the requester perspective, like we edit like the new fields to the request spec. So this is the target and also the type. And I saw like a good comment from Peter, and I can bring it up now. Where was it? Yes, here. What happens when we actually add more eviction request types? So yeah, I will first comment on what we have. So we are adding first like the most graceful eviction type, which is soft. So this basically means that the interceptor can take as much time as it wants. And this ensures that, like, as we saw in some of the presentations, that some applications actually might take hours or days to fully migrate or terminate. So it makes sense to make it like the default type to be the most graceful one. So like the interceptor can basically block like completely. But but we want to also make sure that we can improve the safety of an application in some other scenarios, or some other termination scenarios in Kubernetes today, which is, for example, taint eviction or preemption. But to be backwards compatible, we basically, I think we need to introduce new eviction types other than soft. So it might be that there might be some like deadline for the eviction for the interceptor to adhere to. For example, I don't know, during the preemption. So the scheduler doesn't wait as long to actually see the result. Or we could even need some like, or we could have like a different fallback. So today, like if when all interceptors complete, the fallback is calling the eviction API, like the current one, the imperative one we have in Kubernetes. But we would like to also have option to basically say if no interceptor intercepts or all interceptors completed, we would like the pod to be deleted and not evicted. So basically we could replace like any delete call in Kubernetes today. We could replace with like eviction request. And it depends also like what the deadlines would be for the interceptors. It depends on each case how basically they want their call to be disruptive. So today you have when you create a delete call, you have also graceful termination seconds. So you can use like the default one, which are set on the pod, or you can set a different value, or you can put it to 0. So basically that means that the pod doesn't give any chance for a cleanup and it will be basically like killed.
I would
So yeah,
my only question there, yeah, like I would want that I like as a user, I would want it to be more clear that something was going like if the pod's going to be deleted, like I wouldn't want it to be something where it's like, oh, this value you set to 0 or whatever, and it ends up with the pod being deleted. And like, if I would just want to make sure it's clear to a user, right? So the user experience, you're not like searching around to try and figure out why a pod got deleted or something.
yes. So yeah, that depends. Like the communication channels are like the state and status, or the spec and the status of the eviction request. And like ultimately, like we would like for the most components to use the soft eviction request. So like adding new types is like basically like it is a way for us to introduce this like for the current mechanisms that need to be backwards compatible. So if you have like a taint eviction or like a preemption, you cannot like or with the taint eviction, you cannot go to the eviction API because you could be blocked by a PDB. And if that happens, then the taint eviction would not complete, and that would be like a breaking change. So that's why like we need like the more harsher types.
Right. I mean, it makes sense why it's needed, I guess. I'm just thinking about in my head, like, if there was like some value that didn't necessarily, like if I was a user and I was looking at this and trying to figure out, or if I was some operator trying to figure out like, why a pod got deleted or something, and I was trying to use the eviction request in combination with that. It's just a lot of details. I'm not saying it's bad or it should be changed. I'm thinking through it through my head, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why we are also not like introducing other types in this cap, because it is like a broader domain, and we need basically more analysis to add new types. So I hope like we will add these like later before it would be the best even before we get to beta or have to have another alpha, for example.
Okay. I think that makes good sense to me.
Yeah, and yeah, so and one of the things like Peter asked was like what would happen if you have different requesters asking for different types. So I like made like some example, like for example what we did with what we do today. So that if you use like eviction API today, you can override it with a delete call. And then you can also use the graceful termination pod second period seconds, and or you can also like manually remove finalizers. So I would hope like these new types would be basically like always override the like last one. So if you have a requester which is more stronger, then it will never fall back to the soft one, because like we cannot like make like these like big guarantees, like if there is a soft eviction, like the like a more stronger one will never come, because ultimately like everybody can still like create a delete call. So it's only like for us it's like better if we use this API to communicate the intent clearly.
Right. That makes sense to me.
But yeah, it will be a like if we merge this cap, it will be a like big topic, adding new types. Yeah, so okay, let's continue.
So
Mm,
with soft, you can give you basically have unlimited time to the controller. Was there any concern about that? About giving unlimited time for something to
yeah,
be evicted?
like I had some conversations before about that. So yeah, I cannot link them now, but there was a concern that basically this could like block, for example, the node drain for like for forever. And like and also as I said, like the support in other like area like in other components. So that's why we would need the other types to basically override this. And during the drain, I think like what we aim is like the observability. So we want to give like the users the tools to do what they want. And if something misbehaves, we can like easily debug that like through the status or of the eviction request itself, or like the interceptors, like how they are responding to our request.
Okay. I mean, I guess I'm trying to think about this type like you have with I guess what I'm thinking about is like how much like you talked about how much sort of like complexity. I don't know if that's the right word, but that it could bring if you had different types. I mean, is there an option to not have a type? Like what does that do for us? Or would it how would it change the complexity of this?
Yes, so if we wanted to replace only the eviction API, we could get away like without the type. But I got like some requests from some people, and also it's linked in the like motivation section. So, some issues are linked there, that people would like to have a way to basically synchronize all like deletion or termination mechanisms for a pod, and this is a way to do it basically.
But could well maybe to play devil's advocate, could you if you had no type, like maybe what would it mean? Like it would mean like it's completely undefined, like it's totally up to the operator or whoever the I guess maybe the interceptor, like the to control this, and it's no way in in the hands of the eviction controller, and so it's like kind of the Wild West, and like could then there be those synchronization happen amongst those operators that just be totally outside of the API?
Yeah,
Like
what
I
we
guess what
could
I'm
do,
asking is are they using would people use this type field to synchronize or would use like how would it because could they synchronize in other ways? That's I guess another way to ask
yeah,
it.
I suppose like if you leave this to the ecosystem, you would get a lot of undefined behavior.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I mean I don't know, maybe it's a thought I don't know if it's a
Yeah,
good idea or
yeah,
bad
I
idea, but
am.
it's like you could because if you're getting pushback about like complexity and like fear of like I don't know if it's fear. I don't I'm just trying to read into like some of what you're saying. Like if there's concern about like any sort of complexity this creates, maybe we try and reduce the complexity of the API as much as possible, and then hunt as much of those conversations for later.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at this, but I think like there's a quite big chance like we will introduce other types. We basically want to give the users all the tools they need and they can use them as they wish. So if you have a cluster that you want to be like that you want to care about as a pet, or like you don't want any disruption there that's not like properly consumed, then you would use just the soft type. So, but maybe you have like some other clusters and I mean for the node rain, then maybe you can set like the soft like with a deadline or something. So like we are not prescribing or we are not forcing users or components to use like some kind of eviction, but it depends like what they want to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I mean, I guess like I guess the way I'd summarize what I'm trying to say is that maybe this cap has two phases, I guess. Um that could be an approach. Like that could be if there's any if there's unanswered questions, I guess, about like expanding the types and different fields and concerns about that, maybe there could be done in two phases, and perhaps there's still use of, like, there definitely is, like, I feel like use of an eviction request, and then migrating or having a plan to expand it or something. So I don't know, I think it's just something to think about, like how much of a bite you want to take off on this first attempt versus spreading it out.
Yeah,
That's kind of
I
like the
mean,
feeling I'm getting when
yeah,
reading
I
the
know
comments.
what you mean, but I think like the for example the type field it doesn't cost us anything to implement. Like to me, it's basically says or gives like a signal to all the interceptors that would be like reacting to the action request. Like it gives them an idea that there could be a different type in the future. So they don't even need to check the type right now. But when they first read the API, they know that it might occur. So I suppose like it's better give this signal like as soon as possible. And even if we do not implement a new type, I believe like it's a pretty cheap way of like telling the users like what are our intentions.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like what I'd say is like what because if you're going to only support one value for the field, then you could argue why have the type at all if there's only going to be one value, like in the first iteration. Like you could have all type be just a feature of an additional cap if it's just going to support one value in this time around. You know what I mean? Because it's always going to be the same. What would it buy us? We can almost just assume it silently that it's going to be that value, and then kind of sort of buy you some time to like decide what to do with it, and having an additional field there.
Yeah, like to me it seems like because like if you have some people implementing interceptors, for example, in the alpha stage, um, like it's like if you make like a breaking change later, it's like pretty hard like to make sure that everybody reacts to this change. Even if you are in alpha and beta, like we don't know like how long it will take for the promotion, etc. So like these like breaking changes are like pretty hard to do later, and like yeah, like to me it seems worthwhile to like at this like communication about our intentions in the future.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because yeah, if like the target type is more like debatable, but the type we know there are like the future use cases that we would like to implement. So we are aware of them. So this is, I think, if this API comes to life, it's only a question of when. And
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe. Well, then maybe. I mean, maybe the same argument for the target. I don't know. I mean, I forget what you were doing, if you're including the target or not, but maybe that's the same approach, or maybe we just don't have it and assume a pod and wait for later.
Yeah, I will see like what the API review folks, reviewers will say. I am like okay with removing the target because this is only like a extra cherry on top. Okay, and another point of discussions we had. Okay, so let's bring another section. Okay, alternatives. Okay, naming. So we have had quite a lot of back and forth about like the validation of the name of the eviction request objects, and like we basically went first with like pod UID and pod name prefix. Then we said it's too complicated. Then like we decided to use like any name because this is like basically the easiest to use, but um, there is like a name, for example, name conflict resolution is left up to the users. And like after some discussion, I decided to use the pod UID. And yeah, so like we have these options. There is also the pod name. So I have a discussion with the team about the using the pod name. But the main disadvantage of using the pod name is like the conflict between eviction requests. If basically you have a pod with a UID and the pod is deleted, and then you create a new pod with the same name and different UID, and then you could have stale eviction requests which are referencing the old pod, and some requesters need to create a new eviction request. So you basically could get a naming conflict here. And with the pod UID, you have like you are pretty sure what you are getting. There is only like this one-to-one mapping. And like the main disadvantage is that it is not very user friendly. So like if you list the eviction requests, you just get a bunch of pod UIDs, and we would basically need like some, for example, kubectl client or other clients to show like the reference to the pod name to like to have a better usability of this of our objects. Yeah, and the main disadvantage of the any name was actually like an implementation detail that we could basically get a race condition during like a eviction request admission. So if you imagine like two eviction requests created at the same time for the same pod, and these eviction requests, for example, may reach different kube API servers, then you could like get a conflict of so basically you could get two eviction requests for a pod, and for simplicity we don't want our clients to support this. We only want to have one eviction request for one pod, and this race condition is not easy to solve in the admission plugin. So we decided to get away with the any name option, and now we are discussing the pod UID option. Yeah, not sure if you have any like other options we could use or ideas, or if you, or just let me know if you hate this option a lot for the pod UID.
I mean, if you use the pod UID, there's a way to map to the pod name, right? It's just you have to like get the whole YAML and then convert it or something.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get the pod reference. It has to be filled in the eviction requests every time, and it includes the name and the UID. So you don't need to like do the mapping yourself. It's not easily accessible when they like when people do just kubectl get eviction requests, and if we do not implement anything else, it will just list a bunch of UIDs. So that's the like inconvenient part.
I feel like it could be okay. I mean, the way that I mean, I feel like you could probably do something with kubectl to help us here. You know, like if the way that kubectl drain works today, like there's probably a way that we can expand it to like help us if we
Yeah,
needed to do that.
totally. We should. Yeah, it's just like to me, it's a shame that we cannot use the other options. They would be nicer or easier to use. But sadly, this one seems like the most like the one with the least of problems.
It's probably the most appropriate, to be honest, because I think, I mean, eviction request is probably going to be like an implementation detail or like an underlying API that like the average person is probably not like constantly paying attention to. At least that's probably where we would want it to go long term. Like we mostly want like controllers using this thing anyway, and then users going to the command line or something. So it'll probably be fine. Like even though it is unfortunate, it may not be as bad as we think, just because it's mostly going to be machines talking to machines.
Yeah, until you need to debug something. But yeah, like it should be fine. It's not like a frequent object as a pod, so yeah.
You're right. That's what I was saying. Hopefully, we can have the command line to help us here. And I feel like that's our saving grace for the when we have to debug something.
Yeah, at least on the Cube side, like we can do that, and the other clients or UIs will have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this was mostly the last thing I wanted to discuss. The APIs, like the spec had like these changes, so the type target, like we also renamed the deadline seconds or the progress deadline seconds to heartbeat deadline seconds, and yeah, there was also a bunch of changes like regarding the priorities of the interceptors. That's like a quite complex topic. And yeah, I remember like we had one discussion yeah, about the length of the interceptors field. So I made like the field like the list to be like the size of the list to be pretty generous, and to basically have an option to add like 250 interceptors to the pod, which might be too much, and we might be constraining the pod API. So I think we will need to trim this down. And also like there is like there is a reservation for like a 50 interceptors for uh like for interceptors of the same domain. So basically, if you have one company or one project that want to interact with its own controller, then you can basically have this interval to like have a reservation for your interceptors and your priorities. So yeah, so I'm suggesting like we still like the API review is pending. So I suggested like trimming this down to like 30 interceptors for the same domain and 70 interceptors for the outside ones. Yeah, so yeah, let me know if you feel like it's too little or too much.
I'm curious. I forget if you said this, but how come you have to have something bound? Is this a requirement for like 6 scale or something? What's the
Yeah, so the pod object itself is like pretty um like there is basically a lot of fields there that some of them are bounded, some of them not so much, and like the size of like of the average pod can be quite big. So like adding new fields to the pod API is always under scrutiny. and I forgot what it is, but there is like there's a basically a limit. I think it's on the like etcd side or something that's basically says how much, like what is the maximum size of in bytes, like what an object actually can take. So you cannot have like something over each size, and I think also pod is limiting the return values from, for example, when the pod terminates and you are getting logs, and so like we always have to be careful, like what is the maximum size of each field, and even if we like undershoot it, it's much easier to increase the size in like the future releases than like trimming it down. So that's basically like a breaking change. So it's the best to start like in the least for like to have the least number of interceptors that we need.
So does that mean that you are expecting 250 interceptors?
No, that was actually like yeah, that was what I like imagined, like if you have a lot of components in the cluster, what I imagined like could be like crazy amount like that could be used. So like, it doesn't mean like that you could you like the pod itself would use the 250 interceptors, but it
I
also
sure
means
hope
that
so.
yeah, but it also means that you have like different projects registering different functionalities to different priorities, and they might not be um, like so selective. So you could have like, because it depends on the ecosystem. You might have a person implementing an interceptor, and they are lazy and they just say, okay, so any pod in the cluster I see, I will add my interceptor there. But then like when you run the interceptor, it will maybe only select like a subset of pods. So maybe they are interested only in like some database or something. But the field itself is set in even on other pods that are not a database. And yeah, so this is basically allowing like this lazy behavior, I would say. But yeah, even I think even the like the 30 plus 70 interceptors could be quite generous. So like if there is a cluster that has this list full, then it's up to the admin to basically debug like why there are so many interceptors on the pod. And yeah, okay, yeah, we still like this is still up to discussion in the API review. And I think this was like the major last point that I wanted to say. We also got like a comment from Eric about all of the 6 scheduling scenarios, so which was quite interesting to see. And like I answered to some of his questions, but it basically means there is like a lot of needed functionality that could be built on top of the eviction request, but most of this new functionality need additional caps to basically interact with the scheduling or some other like components. So yeah, so I mean the cap is pretty large, but I feel like there's like a lot of work ahead. And yeah, to finish my topic and give last 15 minutes to Ryan. So we have, yeah, the time is until Thursday, so there is still like a lot of discussions to be resolved. So let's see how it goes. But it's possible that, yeah, I will see you on Thursday. We might, if it seems close, we could ask for an exception for a few other a couple of days. But if not, we will have to push this to the next release. Okay, so let's switch to Ryan. I will give you sharing.
I was reading 3, 4, and 5 from Eric when he posted it. That's it's interesting. Like the third one, this was the from the scheduling side was brought up. I forget who it was by, but the other end of like predictability of preemption, but also the predictability of the opposite of that, like where like we bring with regards to like node maintenance, right? Like where we bring the node back. That was one of the things that was brought up, which is interesting. And then the other two, 4 and 5, are the gang scheduling, and then the last one is multi-host inference. Definitely interesting. And this is probably where we're going to intersect, like with the specialized lifecycle management stuff. Like how are we going to handle those cases? And so yeah, there's definitely a lot more questions there. It's interesting. We're already thinking about these things, so that's good that there's already some thoughts about it out there.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah, the options or the possibilities are very rich. And I feel like a lot of like the scheduling, a lot of the like the predictability, a lot of it comes to like adding additional layers of communication. So for example, like between the scheduler or the application that basically says how much it should be disrupted, like the preemption cost or the time. And we basically need to add like additional layers to the evasion request to basically have like a strict way of reporting all this information back from the applications so we can actually make better decisions. And this would basically I like the best course would be to like wait with alpha for a bit longer time to actually make sure we get all this right. But this also it goes against the adoption. So yeah, like it will be a balance that we will have to solve, like what we want to bring to the API and how like how quick the graduation should be.
Yeah. And that's why I'm kind of like hoping when we kind of start to introduce like this SLM concept. And I mean I'm aiming for like probably 136 from our discussion so far. I mean, we're not really ready for a cup, but that we kind of like have eviction requests, we have some of this SLM stuff, we have node maintenance, and we have like these things together. And then we will probably start to at least answer some of these questions. Because otherwise, because I think you're getting the questions here that are like on everyone's mind. And I think it's really like it's gonna end up being spread across a bunch of these cups. And so that's where I feel like we're gonna see like the challenge in terms of like how we're going to define these across a bunch of um these different features. So I mean it's good people are thinking about it, but I think like that's where our challenge is gonna be.
Yeah, true. And also like there was a pretty good comment from JP last week in the Node Lifecycle channel. So yeah, we need to consider all of these in like when in your document or in the feature cap.
Yeah.
Wait, what did I say? Don't remember.
Yeah, it was basically mostly follow up to the discussions we had like in the I think 2 meetings ago.
Ah, okay,
Uh,
okay, yeah, sorry. Now I
yeah,
remember.
about all these use cases, but you gave like a couple of good points. So I don't remember them fully, but I know like it will be good to consider them like when we are moving forward with the SLM.
Yeah, I have to admit that sometimes I have things in my head and it's not easy to write them down. So sometimes, all these use cases from the past, they don't come out naturally when we are talking about that. So sorry if it's not an exhaustive list from the day one. Anyway,
Yeah, no worries.
we'll see.
Like I know what you mean. Like when we do all of this analysis, like sometimes when I'm thinking about this alone, like new things come up to my mind, and yeah, it's because these are very like complex and convoluted topics. So yeah, there is a lot of things to discuss, and which can also be missed during live discussions. Okay, Ryan, do you want to take it over, or do you want to
Yeah.
like leave this to the next meeting?
No, we can talk about I made a few updates I can quickly go through. Can you give me share
Yeah.
permission? Do I need to send a request?
Okay, I made you a co-host. It should
Oh, there we
now.
go. I got it. Okay. Okay. Okay, let me see. So I just wanted to talk about some of the changes that I've made. So the first things is the document structure. I've changed. I've reorganized it to look like a CAP. I just basically took the CAP structure and brought those titles in and just kind of moved the wording around since it was kind of already in CAP form. We just needed to. I just wanted to make sure we're using the template. So that's probably the big change, and so I started to take form, and that's one thing, and then the other thing we had all these comments from last time, which were great, and I wanted to talk about them since I wrote some things in here for us to think about. So we talked about this idea of that when we have like these node states that might exist, and let's say that they're conditions or whatever, and something is transitioning them, and I think one of the questions which we have here is like how do we know like who's managing this? What's the authority on this? Do we want to make sure that only one person is managing this? And so I mean I had a thought on this. I mean, do we like this is a hard problem, and I think like how can we solve this, and how is it solved in other places? And I kind of in my mind went to using roles and using authn and auth to help us. Like if we can have a way to like have these fields existed, and something's controlling them in a node. I mean I feel like there'd be a way that we can have like someone control like who is allowed to do this, and then try and leave this to the administrator somehow, because I at least have a hard time in my mind like figuring out like how we should make the authority on this something that's supported natively in the API. And how should we control like should be responding to these things? I mean, I feel like that's a very difficult problem to solve. Does that make sense? Does this idea make sense? Like, can we do this with like using like RBAC and using cluster rules and roles to control like if a controller has access to this thing and release to the admin? Or I don't know, is that a crazy idea?
Wait, do you
Yeah.
mean like something else than a status on which you would be able to do actions? I'm confused.
So this
So,
would be imagine
sub-resource?
like I'm not sure. So I imagine so in my mind what I'm imagining is that like I think the solution to me like is going to rely heavily on the admin, the person who has admin permissions in the Kubernetes cluster, and who is controlling like which um, person or which controller has access to, let's say, controlling this node lifecycle. I mean, the nodes are very privileged, right? So we should have some sort of control as to who is going to be accessing it and changing things. So my thought was that we could leave this to the admin to control. And so my proposal was that, okay, well, can we use, what would they do that? Would they use RBAC? Would they use roles to control like who can access this thing? And would that be enough to like solve this problem as to like who is the authority on controlling these conditions? Does that make sense, JP?
I think I get it. I think I get your point, but I'm not sure what's technically possible and whether it immediately makes sense, because conditions is not something that can be directly addressed in an airbag scenario, I think. So you cannot say, okay, only you have access to that condition and only you has access to that because you are the only one to have the airbag right to do it. I think at some point we should also trust the admin to not do the wrong thing and run two controllers that do the same thing to the same kind of resource. So it's more of a convention than a need for an airbag for it, in my opinion. But it's something that I need to consider and think about.
Yeah, go ahead,
If I
Philip.
got your point right, of course.
Yeah, that's correct. I that's exactly what I'm trying to say is that it's a convention. To me, this is a convention more than a feature. That's why I was suggesting using RBACs as a tool to, control, like you said, they could also just have one controller, but perhaps they should use existing APIs to control who is the person who's the authority. Yeah, go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. Like, to me, it seems like, as JP said, like it's too early to actually decide on like the all implementation details, like what should be guarded by RBAC or like validating admission policy. And like we need to start with like modeling like the access or the control, and like and later we will see like what we can actually implement and what not. Like in a lot of scenarios, it depends. For example, like even when we are doing the eviction request, it uh it depends on the like on a good behavior of all the components. So if some of the components are misbehaving and are doing like bad things, for example, skipping the interceptors, etc., it will it will break all the behavior. But like we need to like put a contract out there and say like this is what we intend to do, this is how it should look like. And if somebody is misusing this contract, like we will have a way to monitor this, and we can basically like come back. For example, if you have one field is overridden by a different controller, then we can actually intercept this and say like this is the misbehaving controller, they should not be doing this. Like this is like this goes against the contract. And if that happens, then it is up to identifying these like rogue controllers and then going back to them and telling them you should not do this, and or saying to the customer like if you see this bad behavior, you should not be using this project because they are going like against the convention or like yeah against what like Kubernetes uh, like what it should conform to.
Okay, I think I understand your point, which is that admins really should be responsible here, but what we want on the API is a way to help them find who is being irresponsible, like who's not obeying the contract or
Yeah, and
misusing this.
yeah, and this also like goes in the cap, like there is a section like where you have like for troubleshooting to say like what metrics or what fields you have to monitor to actually say this feature is working properly. So like we will need to solve this like anyway, but like it doesn't mean like we have to strictly solve this. So like there is only one way of like interacting with our APIs. But yeah, like once we have all the like how once we describe all the behaviors and like the flow of control, then we will go back like to the to the primitives and see like what we can implement, and we will like make it as strict as we can.
Okay. Do you, so I guess this is maybe the question is like, so the troubleshoot, so we'd have some sort of troubleshooting section, and there would need to be something that's going to tell us that who recently updated the condition. I think that's what we're getting at here, is that needs to be in the design. Is this how you're doing it, like with eviction? Like you have something with an eviction request that's saying like who updated or who did something, like you have some sort of relationship?
um yeah, there is like the tracking of interceptors, but I mean like the eviction request is like the API itself describes how like the concurrency should work, because it is basically have the eviction request control that is switching through the interceptors. So yeah, but if you have like a field or like an object like a node that's not designed for the concurrency, then you will get more problems. But yeah,
Is
but
there any, what I'm asking is there any like prior art on this? I really want to know, like, I really want to copy something because I don't, I feel like I'm someone to solve this. Like or like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the right thing to do here is. And I don't want to like have to make it up.
Yeah, I guess you can look around the other caps, like what they have in the troubleshooting section, but it is like a very feature specific, I would say.
Interesting. Okay, let me see what I can find. That would be interesting because I mean that's like where I'm going with this is like if this is so specific to the kept that no one's ever done this, then like that's sort of like a question like what like how much of a requirement is that we do this like that like what would it you know what I'm saying like I understand why an admin would want to know this, but like is there I mean, this could be really complicated. Like this could be a really big problem on a node. Like if we're having a field just to say, hey, look, I was the last one to update this. You know, I don't know what the implications are. Like that seems like it's an entirely different kept on its own almost.
Yeah, like the standard way is like is with metrics.
With
So
metrics. Okay.
yeah, if you can solve it with metrics, that's the best way to do, and people are used to reviewing metrics, and you can also ask folks for like a review who from the monitoring side. And but there can be like alternative ways. So we can think of alternative ways. You can also like give a way how to basically see what like API requests are. Like we can observe also the API requests and who manages what field. So this is the other way. But like ultimately you or we have to like understand or decide if we are solving the concurrency correctly. So if not, we have to think of other ways.
Okay. All right. I think then I need to have a section for this. I think that's okay. All right. That's helpful to me. I don't think haven't made any progress on this. I mean, we haven't, we need to decide on this and then I haven't heard anything in addition from the cloud providers, so we'll have to find a way to get this in front of them so we can figure out some of the addition ending cases. But I'm gonna take the one from AWS that they suggested and I'll map it in here, but I haven't done that yet. Yeah, go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, I think the cloud providers will have to do some outreach, and it will
Yeah.
not be an easy part. So I think like we don't have to rush there. I think like we can try to design the rest of it so they actually know what like if we can show them like what we are intending to do, they know what they will be plugging into. So like to me it seems it's like the next like step after we have like the majority of the API.
Okay. All right. So we can do this. We can sort of flush this out later. Okay. Okay, sounds good. I think then we're at time. I'll continue with this offline. I think after this one, I don't see really any other at this point requirements that need to go in here, but I will think it over and see if we're missing anything. Um, but next time we can talk about like the conditions and actually what we would like to see, and then we'll start to form our API.
Okay, cool.
Sounds good. All right, thanks guys.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.